Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. It's Tech Talk time, and while doing the Tech Talk, we're going to be playing some Naval because the Naval event's going on. The good old Alcione. I've actually been keeping up with the coupon, even like spading a bunch of stuff. So it's been pretty fun actually, just kind of chilling and going around. Seems like a lot of War Thunder stuff is kind of on fire right now, mainly just because of the whole nerf to research stuff, but it's been quite nice just to kind of chill and go through and basically just relax, play some Naval, get started on the Battle Pass, and do all of those things. So, already this week, spaded the New Orleans, which was fun. Got the Nuremberg done as well, and then also the Kirov, and nearly on the Agano. So yeah, it's been very good. I've enjoyed just kind of relaxing and playing Naval. Naval grind is a lot easier than others, mainly because, it's one of those game modes where you can kind of double dip with different stuff. But anyway, if you don't know what the Tech Talk is, it's a weekly podcast that we do where we kind of just sit down, chat about all things War Thunder, and then also go through the comments of the last Tech Talk. So if you were a person who put a comment in on the last Edge of Things, then we'll be going through it today. And yeah, that's basically how it works. So if you want to get yourself involved in the Tech Talk, or if you want like something answered, or if you want something going through, you can either basically come on stream and ask it, or, we could just do it through the Tech Talk. So make sure to leave some comments if you want stuff talked about. It's been a busy week in War Thunder. I think it's probably the best way of putting it. There's been a lot of stuff going on, and not all positive. It's got to that time of the year again where, it's summer holidays and there's not a lot going on for people. And to be honest, like, when you look at like what War Thunder's been doing, it's not exactly in the best position at the moment because of a lot of the stuff that they've decided to do. Right, well, just been T-boned. Anyway, let's get to the comments and let's see what's going on. McLarens were comfortably fastest on the dry in FP2, but quali was wet. Ah, fair enough. Fair enough. If you think Naval is rough now, wait till the fast battleships get added. I don't really think Naval's rough. I think it's fine. I think people just have different expectations of what they want Naval to be, which is pretty standard. Unfortunately, we're in an interesting position here. We should try and get out of this. So then we have Flying Fortress, 4819. If they add the B-52, they definitely need to have a dedicated update to revamp bomber gameplay. It sucks when aircraft like the Tu-4 are forced to face air-to-air missiles with absolutely no way to counter them. Well, in real life they did, so that's the issue, right? Like that's why bombers like that kind of disappeared, unfortunately. Yeah, I'll just mute that. Sorry. Thank you for the subscription, Tugnuts. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. You finished the McLaren F1? Nice. May you post this song link later on after the Tech Talk, sure. But yeah, the TU4, like in real life, would have run into the same issues, right? Like that's the thing. Like when you have a look at when the TU4 was actually built, right? So, let's just check real quick. When was the TU4 put together? While we're just waiting on this, because let's see. So the TU4 as a bomber, its first flight was 1947, and it was introduced in 1949, right? So, I mean, that's something which, in the 1949s, you obviously had like the supersonic interceptors that were turning up, and all of those things. So the AIM-9 itself was in service from 1956, right? So that's like a 5-year gap where they would have been able to do stuff. But even then, there was still like missiles and stuff around. So I feel like in general, it's not really a surprise to see that stuff going. The problem with stuff like the problem with stuff like the TU4 is there's no way of balancing them. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. But I was around at the time when it was a lot lower BR, just like the B-29. And the issue, you know what, I'm just going to mute this. Like, screw it. It's still way too loud. the issue with the TU4 is it just doesn't fit, right? Like it just doesn't fit in the game, and it won't ever fit in the game. Same with like a lot of those larger bombers. So unless like you change up basically how War Thunder works, and the way that you'd have to change it up is to favor the bombers, which you could do. But then what it does is it makes all the other bombers in the game completely worthless because then everybody just goes to those bombers. It's the Japanese bomber issue, right? Like Japan has a ton of bombers that nobody plays, and it's because their payloads are terrible. Because in real life they were designed for long distance, high altitude bombing stuff. And in War Thunder, neither of those really exist. It's why the British bombers are worse than the American ones, because the British bombers were more designed for speed and, flying at night and bringing huge payloads as they do it. Now, there's no mechanism that you could bring into the game that would balance out all of these ideas and also make all of them work together. And that's been the issue pretty much with War Thunder since the start with bombers. There is actually no way of making it so all of the bombers would actually work, and that's the problem right there. And there's no way of fixing that. Absolutely no way. And it's the same reason why like you have so many issues with it. The problem that we've had in general in War Thunder is not the fact that bombers themselves have not had a place in the game, because they do, right? You can still play bombers in a way where they're successful, and have a decent amount of effect on the game. The issue is that you have all of the other vehicles that have been added, which are these multi-role vehicles, which either are like, which are either jets or they're fighters, which have just been given a metric ton of bombs. And what this has meant is you have a ton of vehicles which are straight up just better than bombers to use. And that is the actual issue. It's not the fact that bombers don't have a place. They have a place. It's just because of premiums and because of other vehicles being added, they just fill the role of the bomber better. And if we're honest, that's what happened in real life, which is why not many countries have these huge, massive strategic bombers, because they're too expensive, they're too costly, and also if you lose one, you're done, right? It's the same reason why pretty much only America, and not even like the USSR nowadays, really operates these huge bombers, because they're not worth it, right? It's just it's one of those things you would never be able to balance. So even if you like added them, revamped bomber gameplay, whatever that means, right? You would not be able to balance them in the game compared to other vehicles. The only way you would be able to do it, and this is like, the honest thing, is you would have to make basically a PvE game mode which is specifically structured for those vehicles, right? That's all you could do. And people would not find it fun because they'll get bored of it super quickly. Yeah, Baldur's Gate's free on Twitch Prime right now, which is really cool. So, really good game. It's also the thingy edition, I think the problem is Gaijin can't make modes, and they don't like to reward the player base. Gaijin have made millions of modes over the years. I mean, name a game right now in the world that has more modes than War Thunder does currently in active rotation. So Air Arcade, Air Realistic, Air Sim, right? So that's 3 modes. Same thing for ground, so that's 6. And then for naval, you got 2 more. Then you have the helicopter PvE. Then you have the air assault and the ground assault, so that's 3 more modes. So you're up to like, 12, 15, something like that. Then you also have events that they do like every other weekend. And then also you have the World War mode, and you have all of these other things. If anything, the problem is there's too many fingers and too many pies. Like, name another game that has as many modes as War Thunder, right? Grinding, talking about endgame content. Well, go play tournaments. Like that's basically your endgame stuff, whatever that is. Or the more modern stuff that can use ECM systems to make them usable. No, that's not the case. Because let's say you make them usable, and let's say you make them great. There's only 2 nations in the game that can get them. So you've automatically just made it so 2 nations can get them and no one else can. So you're kind of You've basically just screwed up the thing because only one nation will be played out of the two. So yeah, basically whenever somebody spawns, one nation gets an advantage over the other. Kind of sucks, right? There's no way around that. I mean, do you want everybody to play America? 90% of people already play America, so I suppose it's not an issue for people. War Thunder finds ways to add vehicles to any nation. Yeah, but that's very different to adding game modes. But as I said, they already have a million game modes. I can't think of a single game out there that has more game modes at the moment than War Thunder. That's the thing. And that's always been my thought, you know. And they've also tried the battle royale thing. They've tried like the encroaching aggression thing, which is like one thing people always talks about. They tried the battlefield mode that everybody brings up. You know, they tried all of them. They don't work. People cheese them. So I don't know. I don't know. I'd like it's all well and good just saying let's get better stuff, but like don't mean anything. Same argument that's been for 10 years. We need more game modes. All right, well, what do you want to see? No idea. Fantastic. So then we have Cosmonaut 354. With these strategic bombers, the bomber lines could have a whole new chance at life, but they should have their own mode too. No, they wouldn't. The only ones which would are, of course, once again, Russia and America, and maybe China in a little way. But as I said, that's the main issue. Let's say you add these in, right? So you add them in fully, and you know, you have a bit of fun with them. All good. But then what? Do you think they'll be balanced? No, it's impossible to balance them in real life, so how the hell would you balance them in game? And then also, on top of this, you'd only give it to a few nations. So, like, it would just force everybody to play those nations. And then the other thing which also happened, which did screw most bombers, right? Which is the thing that people refuse to talk about, is as they added in the larger bombers, so stuff like the B-29, the Tu-4, and even the jet bombers, which started to come up, like the B-57 and the Canberra, they had to fundamentally change how bases work and fundamentally change how score works and stuff because of the fact that those bombers were so efficient compared to everything else, because they were so broken in the game. And now they're in a position where they're not really that broken, but they're also kind of useless because they had to bounce around them. But because they started to do that, they made everything else useless in terms of bombers. And that's been the issue for the longest time. So the idea that adding even bigger things, right, especially to only two nations, would fix this issue is kind of absurd. Because everything we've seen in the past is completely counter to that idea. So, like, I don't know how many people were around when the B-29 and the Tu-4 were added, but they were impossible to kill. And also, they skyrocketed in repair price. Like, there were so many threads back in the day which were like, why is the B-29 like 60k to repair? And it's like, because the vehicle itself just never dies. And I remember like making a video about this and getting a lot of people pissed at me. But it's just how it is. Like, the vehicle would not die. Because you could go to space, nobody could touch you, and nothing could go on. So you end up in a situation where you can't do anything against it. It happened so many times, and it was so sad, like, to see. And then it got put up in BR, rightfully, and then people complain it's useless. And it's a perfect example of bang or bust bombers. I mean, I don't know. One of the best ways of getting them sorted, if people really wanted to, as I said, would be you'd have to basically crucify on the altar a bunch of different vehicles in order for them to live, and obviously that's not going to work. The bomber thing is very odd to me. Like, as a person who spaded every bomber in the game, it's a really weird discussion to have. Hey, Philip, nice to see you. Combined arms on air sim size maps. Oh yeah, that sounds good. That's also been tried, by the way. It didn't work. Alright, let's see. People get bored and just leave. Like, it happens a lot. So then we have Jerry. I have another great idea. Guardians should add lightning strikes if there's a storm. So if you're flying a plane, you'll randomly get blasted out the sky. This is also a great way to balance cars. Also, I miss the old pictures of vehicles in the stat cards. The quality of the image, depending on how new the vehicle was really cool. Guardians should give an option to bring them back. Yeah, I agree, actually. I don't like the new pictures. I think a lot of them are pretty poor, actually. Like, they they very much smack of a mobile game. Where it's just like a render, you know, obviously on something like the asset viewer, and then they've just plonked it in. That's why some of them look really odd with the scaling that they have, because obviously it doesn't take into account like the size of things. But for me, yeah, it's hey Lorden, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Good afternoon, Snowfington. Nice to see you too, Katrioshka. But yeah, the old pictures I thought had a lot of character, and I did like the idea where you had the really old pictures, and then kind of as you went to the modern day, they became colored instead of being like brownish gray or whatever it was, and it was kind of nice to see the difference between them. But yeah, it's one of the problems when you start to standardize stuff, right? Like when you start standardizing systems, like whether it's like using AI or whether it's, you know, just making everything the same, stuff like loses its character. So it might be easier to deal with on the end of, you know, on the end of the gaijin guys like making stuff. But at the same time, it just loses its character. And it's just really sad. It's not very fun. Hopefully in the future they can bring back some originality for the vehicles, because now, you know, like you'd have a look at World War II vehicles and they would like be old and they would have a little kind of like thing to them, right? And it looked really cool. Now it's just, oh, it's generic vehicle number 5, right? Bombers are way too squishy to be relevant. It's not about squishiness. They're more tanky than all the other vehicles in the game. The major issue with them is, as I said, there is no way of balancing a long-range heavy bomber with a huge payload in the same way you balance a light bomber with a much lighter payload. So what they end up doing is they just balance around the ones which have like the larger payloads, because those are the ones that people play that are more survivable, and that nukes everything else. Like, everybody talks about like the Tu-4 and the B-29 and the larger bombers. Like, you know, that's the ones that people are interested in. What about like the Ki-67? What about the G4M1? You know, what about something like the Blenheim? Like, what do they do? What about the Condor, right? All these vehicles are not meta bombers and are ones which just don't work because the game had to have been balanced around these larger bombers that are, you know, been brought in, and it just sucks. It really does. It's annoying. So we have Jan Marcomazo. Let's see. Hi Tech, hope you're doing well. Yeah, doing good. Your recent video about escapism got me thinking. I agree with you, but I think there is one aspect of escapism you may have overlooked. As someone who's gone through adversity and is now in a pretty happy place in life, one of the things I've learned is that turning your life around doesn't just take effort, it also takes time. Yeah, it takes time and patience. I agree with that. Losing weight or fighting depression or starting a business, most kinds of self-improvement takes years to come to fruition, and it's important to be patient. I think that's fair, yeah. Yeah. This means you could be in a situation where you are actively working on your problems, but they're still all currently there. So it can be healthy to have a part of your day where you put down the boxing gloves for a few hours and just enjoy a positive experience or a hobby. Obsessing over fixing your life can be almost as damaging as ignoring it. Like you always say, balance is crucial. So I think there is a place for escapism, even if your life is not together yet. It just requires moderation. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. But I would also put out, I think it's a good idea to try and create hobbies which are actually beneficial to you too, even if it's in a different way. So, for example, like video games for a lot of people are not beneficial at all. Like, let's be honest. It's not something which can, be good for you in terms of health, unless, it's specific like VR ones or something like that. In general, it's something which is a time sink, but can also be a health sink. Where, for example, if you decide to start reading books, right? Or if you start, working out how certain like things work, like an engine or something like that. All of these things, even though they can be fun and parts of a hobby, they also can be useful. And that is kind of like where my mind goes. But I also have to put out there, I'm a bit of a psycho when it comes to these things. So my kind of work ethic and also the way that my brain works, I understand, is very different to a lot of people's. I don't need a I don't need a shut off valve, right? Like I can easily work 16, 18-hour days without going nuts. I have done for basically a decade and a half now. Like since I was like a mid-teenager, that's pretty much what I've done. But I also understand that that is not so that is not something which would be good or fair for most people. That would destroy them, right? So it's it's something that is a bit of a problem. I want to close on a gaming note. At some point in the future, I highly recommend you give Darkest Dungeon 2 a try. I've never seen a game capture the spirit of winning that internal battle so well. Some of your quotes from the video really made me think of the game. And speaking of quotes, even though the game is one of the most quotable I've ever played, I'm going to pick my favorite line from it, which captures this theme better than any others. There remains a foothold out of this mire, now climb. Hey, that's pretty good. I like that. Thanks, Tech. Have a great time. Yeah, the Darkest Dungeon games I will play. It's just a matter of time. That's one of those things which would take a decent amount. So, hey, Anthony, nice to see you. So they are on the list of games, Darkest Dungeon 1 and also 2. But I still think when it comes to video games, even though they're a really good way of kind of distracting you, I honestly think they're very detrimental if you don't have a lot of your life together. Like for me, since I basically got a lot of stuff in my life together, like when it comes to job stuff, relationship stuff, and things like that, that's opened up a lot of time for me to be able to do other stuff. And gaming is one of those things I enjoy quite a lot. But I think for me, the fact that I can just kind of shut off my brain and not worry about stuff at the same time, it helps quite a lot. And also with the gaming stuff, it can be productive as well. It's all about, trying to get different perspectives on things. It's trying to understand, where kind of the creators were coming from, what they were going for. And for me, I do actually find that quite fun, that part of it. But I think when I look at like a lot of the people who are struggling in terms of their mental health in War Thunder, I don't see that. What I see is people who are struggling in a lot of areas of their life, not using War Thunder as a kind of switch to kind of turn off, but more as a maybe a switch to start turning off, but then turning it into a battering ram to basically blame for the things that are going on. And that is like a classic mental thing, right? That people do. So it's just kind of how it is. I remember the introduction of the T4 around 6-7. Yeah, 6-7. Crazy, right? They're untouchable. Remember lobbies with 10 T4s. You have to fight them in Spitfire or later in the Meteor. I do and have no compassion for T4 users. Yeah, I think the repair cost got up to like it was like 60, 80k because they just weren't dying. Trying to make it understand trying to make people understand the idea that the reason why the repair cost was so high is because they would only die every like 20 games. That was a really hard thing to get through to people because they kept seeing it on like a game to game basis. But no, I understand from my point of view that video games are not very useful in terms of mental health, but also at the same time they may be useful to others. Does that make sense? So for me, it is video games are something that I would not be able to do if I was in a place in my life where I was struggling, whether it was monetarily, mentally, financially, whatever it was. I would have to shut that off and then focus on everything else. But I understand for other people they do need that switch off valve. Most people do, right? Like my missus works incredibly hard. She works way harder than I do, like when it comes to like her work stuff and everything like that. But she also needs a shut off, right? She needs time where she can just kind of chill and relax and, you know, set up for the next challenge. For me, I've never needed that. And it might just be because my brain is just all over the place in terms of like how it works compared to others. But yeah, I've never needed that time where I just need to, you know, okay, need to shut off for a bit and do this. For me, if I do that, it's actually detrimental because I get annoyed because I'm not doing something to improve what I'm pushing forward. And that is something that I think in the long run will be a problem for me because I'll get to an age where I won't be able to do as much stuff that I do now, and it will kind of annoy me. But it's one of those that I can't really change. Like I've been this way for an incredibly long time, and it's why my thoughts and my general ideas are pretty different to a lot of other people on it. Like whenever I read like psychological stuff or sociological studies and things like that, the main thing that people complain about is like money and not being able to relax because they don't have enough money, so they have to like put a lot of time into, you know, trying to get the money basically. For me, the major issue I have is if I have nothing to do. Like I go very much stir crazy, and even like playing like video games and stuff. Right, the video game has to be incredibly enticing, or has to be incredibly like have quite a large strategical element for me to actually fall into it in a big way. War Thunder's slightly different because there's obviously the content side of it and the streaming side. It's more of like a social thing in that way, with also the elements of being able to do tactical stuff as well if you want to. So yeah, it's one of those which is definitely different. I think you're right about how people need a switch off though. I just think there are better switch offs than video games. Whether it's even just like a TV show or a movie or something which can be done as a secondary thing, or as I said, reading or working out, that generally I think is better than doing video game stuff. Video game stuff is better for other stuff. It can be very good for educational stuff, but once again, that's one of those which I feel like is very much overblown in terms of what people say. The other thing it's obviously very good at is reactions and timings and getting people more comfortable with certain ideas, which, you know, is also kind of useful. But once again, things like books and other stuff like that can do that too. So yeah. I need to get more into like the whole educational aid video game stuff just to see what it's kind of like, because whenever I read about it or look at the games that do it, I'd never feel like they're very useful, but once again, they might just not be designed for what I think, so I don't know why I came over here. This was a terrible decision. But yeah, so it's fair. All right, so then we have Joey Stuckrath. They should add the B-47 Stratojet first to see whether the B-52 would be a good addition. I don't think that's how that works. If I'm honest, I don't think it would. I think we can kind of work out if the B-52 would be a good addition or not quite easily, and the answer is unfortunately no. No matter how many people want it, you know, you'd have to add it in incredibly neutered compared to what it actually is, and that obviously wouldn't. It's one of those vehicles that you'd have to add in neutered because otherwise you wouldn't be able to balance it. And then if you added it in neutered, then people would complain. So it's a very tough sell, you know. Why not give bombers exclusive targets in the game? Well, as I said, the problem with doing that is pretty simple. If you give, let's say, exclusive targets to bombers, right? Then what that means is whoever just has the best bombers explode those targets. And that's the problem with bombers. It's the fact that you have so many of them that have completely different bomb loads, completely different speed, completely different defensive armaments. So if you try and make something that is tailored specifically for bombers, you would only make it tailored specifically for a certain type of bomber, which is what we have right now, by the way, with the base system and how it works, and the rest of them would just be completely worthless, which is what happens right now. And the only place they can be used is either in naval or ground, and in order to grind them out to do that, it's easier to do an aerialistic, because the bombs to start with are pretty useless in ground, and yeah, it just causes issues, right? So yeah, it's the problem. It's the fact that you have so many of the vehicles that have massively varying statistics to them, which causes issues. Then we have Nightwolf. Any B-52 would be nice, but I'm going to assume they'll add the B-52D due to it being the prominent version during Vietnam that had the tail gun, which allowed it to down 2 MiG-21s. I would be incredibly surprised if they added the B-52, if I'm honest. But once again, they will do eventually. There'll be like an update around it. But the major problem, as I said, is balancing, and also the fact you can only give these types of bombers to two nations. But then again, that hasn't really stopped them in the past. So looks like at the moment in War Thunder, we're heading down the road of basically just American supremacy. So might as well add more. Why not? So then we go to Dodge the Cringe. The magic of a paycheck forced Bruce to do that. Oh yeah, the good old Bruce. Well, it's not as if like the dude wasn't making money in other areas. Like that's the thing, right? Like obviously he got paid doing the War Thunder stuff. Like and he got paid doing other things too. Because Bruce didn't just do War Thunder stuff. It's just weird, man. Like I don't know why he did what he did. Like at the end of the day, he's an old dude, and I suppose he's probably at a point where he was just going to retire or something. But it's just so silly. Like it's I suppose the real question is as well is like how much of a hit would it have been to his actual kind of like who he is, or would people remember? Because that's the other thing. In the age of the internet, people forget about these things so often. Like there's super popular YouTubers and super popular people who have just done heinous stuff in the past, and people have just completely forgotten it exists. And yeah, that's just kind of how it is, you know. Hey Juan, nice to see you. Nice to see you too, Papa Stalin. Kind of sad we don't have any Olympic events going on. I was thinking about that actually. Should be quite nice. Video games are great to learn how to handle failure and bad results. Of course, there are still some players who rage quit and deinstall, come back later or rage over other games, but this can learn resilience. Yeah, that's fair. Like it can be. That's true. I mean, obviously it depends on the game, but yeah, that's a fair cop. It can definitely be something that can be used to learn what's going on. Such as understanding in life that Moffats should have never existed and be banned. So, yeah, if that's the other thing that annoys me when people, because that happened a lot a few years ago, especially during the COVID stuff. There was a lot of people who were just saying, "Oh well, you know, they have to do it for money." No, they don't. Like nobody has to do anything for money. Like especially if you're making like online content. Like if you're making online content and you need to either like basically destroy your values, or you need to like do something heinous to get a paycheck. Nah, you're good. You can go down the well. Like this is a very simple world to make money if you want to, and also at the same time, there's the real world to make money in too. So, like it's really sad to see people go down those roads. But then again, you know, it's not a surprise because, as I said, there's literally no accountability on the internet anymore. Or maybe there just never was. Like that's the thing. Oh well, c'est la vie. Sad, but it is how it is. Right, so then we have Gerald Crochet. Where in the entire video was the B-22 edition talk? Oh, there's timestamps. Alcard DGD. If they had the B-52, it'll only make sense that Vulcan or Victor for UK will also be added. The B-52 is a magnitude bigger in general ideas than the Vulcan or the Victor. Like it's insane the difference between them. But yeah, sure, why not? To be honest, I think what they should do is now that they've added all of the insane missile machines, they should just add all of these big bombers in and just make it so, you know, they face all of these crazy machines. Like why not? At the end of the day. You know, why not face what they would have faced in real life? Hey Deadly Hirsch, nice to see you. Nice to see you too, Hunter O'Donnell. And they can just do it like that. I think it would be actually quite productive to do, actually. I think it might kill two birds with one stone. Alright, and then they have Phil. Do you think they should add a technical tree with stuff like the Humvee or the Toyota? Nah, there's no use in a tree specifically for vehicles like that. They should just add them in the tech trees that make the most sense to add them in, right? Like that's at the end of the day what you do. Like for example, you know, you have stuff in the game already, which is designed with that kind of idea past it. Hey Teddy, nice to see you. But if you want to add in Jeeps or if you want to add in stuff like that, sure. I mean, it'll be weird, kind of wonky to balance them, but it might actually make people enjoy playing like SPGs, especially if they have 80 gems on them. A nation which has a ton of those weird and wonky vehicles is Sweden. They actually have a ton of like four-wheeled buggies which have like 80 gems or recoilless rifles on them. So yeah, they could definitely do something like that. Hey Sarge Moon, nice to see you. We're doing the tech talk right now, having a bit of fun. But yeah, why not? No, but not in a specific tech tree. Instead, add it in a different way. So add it in what's the word? Add it in just the tech trees that already exist. You don't need to make a new tech tree for a type of vehicle. It doesn't really make too much sense. Then why not give special SL or reward boosters to underused vehicles, underused bombers to encourage usage? They already do. That's why they changed the rewards on the vehicles. People still don't play them. Because it's very hard to actually get those rewards going if the missions aren't tailored towards you. Let's kind of like put it like this, right? So let's say I have a B5N2, okay? And let's compare it to an SU6 or an SU2. Which one has the higher chance of doing more in a battle? So the B5N2 at most has like one bomb or one torpedo. It does have some 50 kilos. It has no offensive armament. It has one turret on the back. The SU2s, they have multiple bombs that they can carry. They also have access to the... oh dear. They also have access to the other stuff. So they have access to the frontal guns and also the back guns, right? So an SU2 has way more opportunity to do something than the B5N2. Way more. So the idea is you would give higher rewards to the SU2, right? Sorry, you give higher rewards to the B5. Now, this works because, you know, you get more stuff in the B5 because you do less. But people will always look at the SU2 and go, I mean, it's much easier to play that vehicle, so I'll just play that anyway. And I'll get as many rewards in it too, and I won't have to worry too much about having to do like weird stuff with it. That's basically what ends up happening. And it kind of sucks. But, you know, we have 10, 11, 12 years of people doing stuff like that. And also, let's say you boost the rewards of one vehicle to try and help it, or reduce the rewards on another vehicle to make the other vehicle more useful. Now you're going to get a riot on your hands. Because people gravitate towards the vehicle, which is better, right? And now, if you've directly nerfed it, right, then what ends up happening is people get annoyed at you because you've just nerfed the vehicle they play. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. But we have an example of it happening literally right now with the SU-25 and the A-10 and the rocket debacle. It's exactly what's happening right now. They took the vehicles that are overperforming in terms of, you know, the amount of rewards that they're getting because people are abusing them, and they changed them, and they improved others to try and get people to use either loadouts or different vehicles. And instead of people using different loadouts or trying different things, they are straight up just rioting. So like, so they're actually doing what you're saying, and you have a bunch of people who are super pissed off at them. So I don't know what you do there. The only way you can do it if to not annoy people is to boost stuff and not nerf others. And what that creates is inflation. Like if you've ever read about 1930s Germany and what happened with their hyperinflation, that's basically a small area of that. So if you increase bonuses on everything, then that means prices have to increase, and then everything goes nuts. So yeah, it's another interesting little quinky dink thing in terms of the game. Oh dear, what a fun time. How do you think Gajim will implement modern bombers like the B-1 and its Russian counterpart? I don't think they will. I think in general, when you have a look at vehicles like that, there's not really a way of being able to add them. And it's quite funny you say the Russian counterpart as well. What is the Russian counterpart to that? Because America kind of is the sole leader when it comes to those ridiculous machines now. Like, does Russia even have any, you know, large, very high altitude, long range bombers anymore? Do they have any in service? I think they have some Bears, right? Or something like that. Which is just crazy. Because, like, goddamn. Like, they always fly one near the... They always fly one near the UK every so often every year, just to basically say hi. But, like, even then, like, that's nothing. And that, once again, that's the problem. You add all these vehicles, and it's like, oh, awesome. But you only add them to one nation. And now every other nation gets screwed because of the fact that now you have to everything gets bounced around those. So technically the Tu-160, but as far as I know, it's only really used for cruise missiles. Yeah, the Bear, right? Like that, the Tu-95, like that's pretty much the one that they have, right? But the Tu-160 I don't think it's not even equivalent to the B-1, right? So yeah, you could add the B-1 to America and then add it, and then not add anything equivalent. And, you know, as somebody who's been around for a decent chunk of time in War Thunder, if you do that, you break the game. So just like they did with the B-29 and the Tu-4. Crazy. And the B-57 and the Canberra. Tale as old as time, song as old as wine, Beauty and the Beast. So then we have Untent Qualsiasi. And before adding the 52, I think it's better to add the A5 Vigilante and other planes of the 50s. Yeah, sure, why not? Go crazy. There's a lot of American planes they can add in the 50s and 60s and 70s. We actually did a few museum streams this week, and you know, we saw a lot of the 100 or 1000 series of aircraft, which is kind of cool. You know, the F-104, F-101, stuff like that, which would be cool to see. All of the vehicles which are more based around missiles and going fast, like Interceptor vehicles. There's a ton of Interceptor vehicles that they just haven't added to the game, and I honestly think it's because, once again, it's kind of the same as the bombers, right? Like how the ones that they've added, so like the LA 200, for example, notoriously bad for balancing that one. Like it's a very tough one. The Lightning is another one which took ages to get to a position where it actually made sense as a vehicle. And then there was also a bunch of other ones that have been added which were kind of designed for interceptors that still haven't really worked, like stuff like the F-104, like which is either really good or really bad. So I think looking at those, they probably didn't want to add more because of that. You know, it's not exactly a fantastic position to be in where you put a lot of effort and work into these vehicles and they also cause a lot of strife because, you know, they can't balance them properly. Hey crazy kid, nice to see you. I'm doing well. Life's alright. But yeah, there's a metric ton of stuff that they can add to like kind of the 7.0 to 10.0 area. Only for a few nations though, funnily enough. But yeah, I'm sure we'll see more of them as time goes on. Right now, I think they're more focused on the high tier stuff because that's actually where nations have a bit more parity in terms of what they get to use, which is crazy to think about, you know, because America, right? History is one of those things, right? If you're not an American, and also if you're not really that interested in aviation history, like one of the things you got to understand is how dominant America has been the last 50 to 80 years in aviation. Like the Soviets have sometimes had a slight advantage in certain areas, but they have just been insanely dominant in terms of what they've been able to do, right? And that starts pretty much from the late 40s onwards. It's nuts. Like the jet age has just been completely dominated by America. And all you have to do is just look at when certain vehicles were developed or look when certain things were around when it comes to America and also when it comes to other nations in War Thunder, if you want like a really simple way of looking at it. Or like just look at when, you know, like when that Su-27 that that's just been added to the game came out compared to like, well, the F-15C, which is the one that they've just added. Like it is just like a different world. So the idea that the idea that they can't sort out these areas, I would be amazed if they could sort out the interceptors. It would just the game would straight up become just America versus America. And I know in Jets it already kind of is, but this would be even worse. Like there would be no reason to play anything else. It would be nuts. But yeah. Crazy times. Maybe that's what people want. Maybe that's what people want. They want to just see the same vehicles over and over again because you know they're from their country of origin and they like their country. But I don't know. I'm not really that interested in that. But yeah, who knows? The future is very interesting when it comes to jet combat in War Thunder because there's several ways that they can take it. I'm sure one of the ways that won't really happen is the bomber one though. Then we have Mab with another set of timestamps. Also, thank you to Kawam-chan for doing the timestamps too. Both of you guys, it was very kind of you. So thank you guys for that. It's very good. Always nice to see people doing that. All right, so the next vehicle we have is the Duca degli Abruzzi. I don't really want to play that. I need to do the Goichin first, actually, since that one's a little bit lower. Nope. Just need to click to spawn that in, and then we'll just do the other one. Yep, okay. Right, so I just recently replayed World of Tanks, and I can confidently say that War Thunder is a million times better. NORA and GBS, War Thunder has better economy, more chances to get free stuff is actually better. I've got a new sense of respect for Gaijin. World of Tanks is like, so what's the latest OP premium this season? Oh, shiny. Types credit card info in the premium store. Yeah, I mean, World of Tanks has always been more egregious than War Thunder. Like, it has been since the start. And it's nice nowadays that, you know, people see that. It did take a long time to get to that point. But yeah, it's insane the difference between World of Tanks and War Thunder. They just recently literally the thing that they've been doing more in World of Tanks is obviously like kind of the auction system, right? And the auction system's horrific. But the bigger problem, at least that I've seen recently, is over the last few years they've been doing numbered premiums. So what they'll do is they'll have a premium which is like there's only 1,000 of them that you can get, and each time you like purchase it, or when you purchase it, it has a number attached to it, so you know which number of the one that you got. And this is just once again just a FOMO thing, and it's just one of those normal things in World of Tanks. And World of Tanks is just so bad for it, man. It's if you any system to try and like break an economy or to try and make something worse in terms of what it like looks like in War Thunder, it's already been tried in World of Tanks, which is where a lot of these ideas come from. And the loot box stuff is so ridiculous in World of Tanks. It's not even funny. The auction house stuff is just predatory. And the crazy thing is, there was a news story this year about World of Tanks where the revenue of the company surpassed $1 billion. So yeah, it's it's the problem. The problem is all of these ideas and all of these kind of sad ways that things are happening are working, and that should make you pretty depressed. And it's just sad to see. So hopefully in the future we can start getting a bit more moral backbones, or maybe just have less expendable income, you know. That would be something that may help, but who knows? It's just nuts to me, like in terms of how much money is running around there. It also shows how much money Guardian makes. Like they make insane amounts of money. At least revenue wise. Obviously it might be different in others. But yeah, if you ever want to actually see a proper predatory game, it's well worth just looking into World of Tanks. Just because, even just to get an idea, like for me, what I do quite a lot is since, you know, with War Thunder, you know, it's an ever-changing, ever-growing game, right? So there's things that change all the time in it. What is really important to do in an ever-changing, ever-growing game is to constantly look at the competition and see what they're doing and see what technologies they're improving and going around with. So I actually find it kind of interesting to watch, you know, streams from whether it's like World of Tanks or whether it's from even like Crossout, like other Gaijin games, just kind of see what they're working on. One of the cool things that I actually looked at this year, and we did actually, I believe, on Twitch, was the Epic guys. They run Unreal Engine, I believe, and they unveiled like a bunch of new features in Unreal and how it's all going to work, and it was pretty cool. You know, it was nice to read about, and it was nice to look at and see how it all worked, and it gives like a new perspective on maybe what Gaijin can try and do in the future, or maybe something that Daegor can do, and I think that's pretty cool. It's good to keep your hand on the pulse of these things. Otherwise, you know, it's not that you fall behind or anything, but it's just it's always interesting to talk about new ideas instead of recycle old ones. And I feel like one of the problems we have in War Thunder is there is a lot of recycling of old ideas. And if you ended up recycling them for like 5 or 10 years, you have to start thinking of new things. And one of the new things where, you know, that works is by looking at what other people are doing and what they're innovating, which is pretty cool. Then we have Last Red Star. Hello, Tech. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, workouts have been going great. July was nice. Had a little bit of a holiday at the start, which was super good. Really important to get away and just kind of reset the batteries. Then also ended up playing a bunch of different stuff, which was fun, and a lot of different games too. I think that was probably the most important thing. Playing a bunch of different stuff instead of doing like the same things over and over again. Like we played the new levels of Station to Station, which was really fun. We've been playing Nobody Wants to Die over the last little bit. Played some Forza Horizon 4, which has been really fun. Cataclysmo, we played the early access of that. Battle Block Theater, we finished off. Got back into Bannerlord. Nice to see that it's, you know, in a pretty decent position now. Completed their billions. I did a bunch of things. Just once again, just have a bit of fun and try some different stuff. It was really nice. Like July was a good month in terms of just playing stuff and, you know, learning about things. Usually July is a pretty like slow month, which is why ended up going on holiday and stuff. But I think overall it was nice to kind of chill and go and have a look at things. Very happy that I did. Very happy that we sorted that out. And then maybe we'll do the same in another period. So, hope you're doing well. Can't believe we're getting a profile enhancement after so long. Yeah, 11 years. Like 11 years of the same stuff, you know? It's slightly changed over the years, but not really. But the fact that they're adding in customization is so cool. Personalization and player expression isn't something War Thunder has done, but hopefully this is the first big leap in something more. There's always something you can improve. Very true, and I'm pretty sure this will be the first leap into something new. So that's something you can look forward to in terms of War Thunder. I think when you have a look at a lot of games, one of the big areas where they start really focusing on in terms of content, in terms of things, especially when they're so far through their life, is customization, right? And they've really started to ramp it up over the last few years when it comes to camouflages, whether it's through like the update boxes or whether it's through stuff like the esports boxes and the drops that they've been doing, and even just like adding more skins to be able to like research out. And same with like profile pictures with stuff like the page of history. So I'm hoping that kind of going forward they have more of that stuff, and I'm pretty sure they will. Like they'll have more titles, they'll have more things, and maybe even some animated stuff, right? Like it would be so cool to get some animated profile pictures. They have done it in other games, just not War Thunder. So that would be quite nice. I had a thought about a camouflage netting in the game. First, we had the Premium 204 given a cool net, and last year the Striker. I hope Guardian may consider shifting some attention to World War II vehicles that use camo foliage. The Tiger tank being decked out in a detailed camo would look so cool as an example. Do you think Guardian will consider this, or is this the 500G camo foliage we have in game good enough? To not warrant the resource. I think Gaijin is only focused on high top tier stuff and whatnot. Hope to hear your thoughts. Have a good day and thanks for the vids. Yeah, anytime. We'll continue. I mean, I personally hope they would do something like that. I think it would be super fun. What I honestly think is if they want a way of making these things more interesting to people, or making it so more people are interested in stuff like battle passes or events, that's the way to do it, right? So for example, imagine if they just, for this like battle pass, they could have easily just done another like naval vehicle, which was like a premium, and then it had access to a new camo, like a very similar to like what the Marat has, right? The premium. And I don't think many people would have complained or been annoyed at if they started doing stuff like with like ace crew qualifications, or whether with specific challenges for a vehicle like get 1,000 kills or something. If they ended up making it so you got like camouflage nets for those vehicles, I think it would be really cool. And at the same time, it could be a modification that you turn off. They have done stuff like that in the past, not exactly like that, but same idea, right? That's the whole point of the ace crew, the crew skills, and unlocking decals for using specific vehicles. Like a lot of bombers have like decals attached to them, which are usually attached to like the bomber squadrons that they were part of. And I don't see why you couldn't have that, but for decorations for vehicles too. You'd also be able to G them, obviously, because they want to make money out of it. And also they could just do them as standard premium vehicles, or as I said, event or battle pass vehicles, kind of what they've already been doing in a way. So yeah, it's definitely something that could be done if they wanted to. There's a lot of opportunity to be able to get them done, and I hope they do. If I'm honest, it's one of those parts of the game that I think is really cool. The camouflage stuff is nice and all, and I was a bit worried that they were going to make it so the camouflage netting was only for premium vehicles, but if you actually have a look at the way that they've done the Vextra, it's the first tech tree vehicle with camouflage netting. So my guess is this is going to be something that's going to expand to other new vehicles put into the game. I don't think adding it to old vehicles would really do anything, because the idea would be to get it, you know, a little bit hypey, a little bit something that people are interested in. But in terms of actually having a vehicle to try and sell, whether it's like an event vehicle or something like that, they could definitely do it. I've always liked the idea of, as we've talked about, some kind of like workshop mechanic where you can kind of put together vehicles, but over your own time or a longer period of time instead of like what the events used to be. But one of the ways that I think would be really cool if they decided to do it is imagine if they attached it to a page of history. So let's say if you complete 3 pages of history, or maybe 6 pages of histories in a year, then you get access to it doesn't have to be a premium vehicle, could just be like an event vehicle, but you get access to an event vehicle, and that event vehicle is like a standard vehicle with a historic camo from a specific person with like a camouflage now on it. I think in general that would be really cool. I think I think a lot of people would like that, and you know, I don't see a problem with it. The only issue is it would obviously cost additional money, so you'd have to add in an element to monetize it from Gadget's point of view. And I think the way that you do that is you make it so it's a workshop item, so you'd have to put it together after completing those like 6 pages of histories or however many pages of histories. You don't want to make it all of the pages of histories, so you don't want to make it like every single one that you have to do in a year, but instead you make it so, you know, you want to grind out like, you know, X amount of them and do it like that. So maybe like 50, 60, 70%, something like that. And yeah, it would just unlock a workshop area. And after unlocking that workshop area, it would basically mean that you'll be able to put together the vehicle. I think that would be cool. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could just be a vehicle that's already in the game, and then it just has access to a number or has access to a cabinet, kind of like the ICE 2321, right? But that's how it should go. The drops are buggy, Snuffington, unfortunately. They've been buggy since the start, which kind of sucks. Hopefully they work for you in the end. 57s are really working. I don't know what the hell they're shooting at though. I don't see anybody up there. That's weird. These matches are really stupid because basically people just go in bombers and then just bomb everything from the sky. So it's just whoever ends up bombing. It just ends up whoever actually has just a vehicle from either side that just wants to get in it and bomb from either side. It's so stupid. My guns are like just shooting straight upwards. What are they doing? So weird. I'd love to have an event with jets, but cannons only. Would be interesting if it can work. I mean, you could just play lower tier jets, you know? Like, wouldn't that just be the same? Or do you mean like higher tier stuff? So we have Frank Bradley. Hey Tech, thanks for answering my potential Olympic sports question from 2 weeks ago. We just came up with 3 more potential Summer Olympic sports that can be added. What are your thoughts? Paddleboard racing? I don't mind that. Dodgeball and horseshoes. I'm amazed that dodgeball isn't already in the Olympics. Horseshoes would be fantastic. Same with like hacky sack or whatever it's called. Hacky sack is insane. Right, my guns are just broken. Like, what are they doing? Hacky sack, if you don't know what hacky sack is, they are, it's where you have like this little like sack and with like beads in it or something. And then what you end up doing is you have like a little hole that you have to throw it in from like 20 meters away. Some dudes are just insane. Like they do it just over and over and over and over again, and it's just nuts. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. They're super talented at what they do, and it's really cool to see when they do it. Once again, as I said, by the way, these maps are worthless because of this. People just going around the side of the maps and using planes and going after the AIs. So you know how like everybody's always asking for like new game modes and stuff and things like that? Like even in the current game modes, people just cheese them consistently, which means that whenever you have like something that's different or originality like this one, which is like a convoy kind of, you know, encounter you know, try and defend mission, people just cheese them. So like, what's the point? It's very annoying. Hey, Westwoke, Caroline, nice to see you. But yeah, horseshoes would be fun, or hacky sack. Dodgeball would be great. Um, Dodgeball, like if we can have breakdancing as an Olympic expression thing, I think we can do dodgeball. Dodgeball at least would be entertaining. There's a lot of those types of sports that would be fun. I really don't like any sports in the Olympics which are based on opinions of judges. I think is probably the best way of putting it, because there's just been too many times over the years where there's been too many scandals from people just straight up cheating in terms of like giving different people points and also being paid off. Let's be honest, like especially in the boxing and the ballerina stuff. I can't remember the name of it. So I would just want sports which are more based around points and based around being able to record what people are doing and what's going on. Once again, my 57s are just shooting randomly. They're not shooting at anything. What is going on with them? Hey, it'd be nice to see you. So yeah, like anything that can be timed or anything that is like points based in the way that you score something would be fun. And dodgeball would definitely be up there. Don't think there'll be a lot of crazy stuff about that. I'd also want the cricket, but the cricket which is there's a cricket which I can't remember what it's called, but basically you have to defend your feet, and then it's all about the other side like trying to hit your feet so they get to bat. But I can't remember what its name is. But that one would be fun, especially in a small area. So then the ball can't travel too far. You can't just like smash it and then kind of go from there. That would be pretty fun. There's a lot of fun sports. That would be nice to see. A lot of like kids sports, basically. Like, why don't we have tag at the Olympic level? Why is tag not a thing? Like, have you ever seen like those guys running around who are like professional taggers? It's crazy. Like, it's absolutely nuts. They have like this huge like arena with like a bunch of things going around, and then they basically one of them has to dodge for as long as they can, and then the other person has to catch them. And it's basically just like parkour, but you're trying to catch somebody. It's pretty fun. Yeah, the Olympics this time, I don't know. I'm not really that interested in it, if I'm honest. Like, I was talking to my father about it, and he was saying like, I don't. He doesn't know anybody from it, and I think that's fair. Like, I can't name a single. I can't name a single athlete at this Olympics, and also at the same time, it's not on like terrestrial TV, so there's no way of actually knowing who is what. There's also all of the scandal right now when it comes to the performance enhancing drugs, especially with the Chinese guys. Oh, there was a lot of them that were found to be doping in the last Olympics. There was like 30 or 40 of them. But then, of course, the Chinese guys, like the testers came out and like, no, 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 they're not cheating. And then obviously the overall committee was like, no, 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 they're not cheating. Um, and and then what has ended up happening is 11 of them who got caught doping are now actually in this Olympics. And there's a lot of athletes that are annoyed about it for obvious reasons. So yeah, fun times ahead. Yeah, Simone Biles, yeah, she's one. But I think she's, at least in the sphere that I'm in, she's famous for kind of sad reasons. Obviously, she's very talented and everything, but what happened to those girls in the American Olympic team is so sad. Like they really were treated horrifically. So that was a very tough time to read about. Not a huge fan at all of that. So don't know if those guys got justice in the end in civil court. I know the guy went to jail for abuse, but you know, sometimes on the individual basis that's not really great. That whole like American lineup of those girls just got so mistreated. It's so sad to see. Happens way too much in sports like that. LeBron James. Well, yeah, LeBron James, but like once again, and Kevin Durant, I suppose. I don't. Right. When I was growing up, the whole point of the Olympics was it was supposed to be for like semi-professional athletes. You know, it was supposed to be for people who are not just professional athletes. But NBA stars are professional athletes, and tennis players are professional athletes, and so are the rugby players. So, like, is there just not a difference now? Like in terms of the way that the board like sees them? Because I remember there was a big kerfuffle like a little bit ago about in the NHL because the NHL chooses whether the players are allowed to go or not, right? And obviously represent their countries. But it just seems a little bit odd that because they're all professional players. So, like, what the hell? Like, it just seems weird to me. But I'm sure they either changed the rules or my interpretation is probably not great. So we have yes from Gerald Crochet. Yes, I've a question. Where was any talk or info about the B-52? I'm sure you're not interested in, as you don't like vehicles unable to defend themselves. The B-52 can defend itself, especially the early variants. But the B-52 is a personal favorite of mine and such an iconic historical plane still in use. It's just insane to be missing in this game. Not really. There's a ton of vehicles that are missing in the game, which could easily be in the game, which were very iconic. Stug 4, for example. The B-26 took ages to get into the game. The other Mosquito variants, for example. The F-102, the F-104, the even later variants of stuff like the F-111, for example. There's, the MiG-25. Like, there's a million vehicles that are iconic that aren't in the game. Like, it's even stuff like the Manchester, and it's just how it is. But the reason why the title was Roadmaps in the B-52 edition is because what has been talked about over the last period of time is, number one, how do bombers work and how do we make them in a better place? And then number two is, where are these larger vehicles? And that's a topic which comes up over and over and over again in War Thunder because it's one of those things that never changes. Like, and it's got a very simple answer to it, and the answer is no, it probably won't happen in the way that you want it to happen, and they'll probably be added as like nuke bombers, and that's it. But also at the same time, it's something to think about and try and work out how to play or how to add into the game. And what saddens me a lot about discussions around the B-52 or around any of these like larger machines is pretty simple. Whenever they're discussed, it's never about how they would fit in War Thunder. It's just about how cool they are. And that's all good, like, if we have a look at like the F-117, for example, really cool vehicle. Like, it's pretty, looks awesome, right? Pretty dope. But it's like, well, how does it fit, right? Like, it kind of sucks. And I would rather have the conversations around how do we actually change the game to fit these things in, and how do we also make it fair to all of the other vehicles that you would be crucifying by adding it in, and also changing the game towards, right? So yeah, there's the idea that because something is iconic means that it should be in the game is not going to work, right? Like, think about like ICBMs or even even like space shuttles, right? They're still military vehicles, some of them. So yeah, it's more of a question of how can you add it in and actually make it work. And since right now in War Thunder, we are at a stage where they've added pretty much all the counters to those things, they could easily add them in, and it would be hell for the vehicles, but they would at least work. They would work at being shot down. You know? Do 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 do. Yeah, the words were spoken in the last one. And it will also be spoken again many times over. Then we have Away With You, Valbega. I'm just going to read through this one, since it's pretty long. It's paragraph time. Hello, Tech and everyone reading, and welcome to the episode of It Exists in Real Life, so Guardians Should Add It. In today's episode, Historically and Realistically Accurate Modes, Part 4. P.S. I had to space the sentences to make reading easier on the eye. Terraforming. Gadget introduced some ways to mess with some of the terrain, like big bombs leaving craters, destructible objects, buildings, and the dozer, but we all know this is but a fraction of the realistic ways as humans can impact the world around us. That's very true. Thus, we shall add a mechanic where we can realistically influence every piece of terrain on any map. Did you ever want to play Worms and blast your way through the mountain, but in War Thunder? Well, now you can. We'll make sure any surface is destructible if you have the right tools and allow the players to truly express their inner demolitionist/tactician. Remember the game that was like that? Came out like last year, looked pretty fun. Like this, players can create choke points, cover, and also open new ways to flank enemies. That's pretty cool. Love that idea. Obviously, sadly, we don't live in a world where all terrain is equal, and that will influence what will damage in the terrain or not. Thus, we get to the side effects. Number 1, soft terrain. The effect will be similar to what we have, and the update update realism will add to that by making sure the damage dealt and thus radius of the crater will be proportional to the TNT equivalent instead of the arbitrary size. Seems fair. Right, let's see. There will be no more invisible force field bottom of the map that keeps the ground from being fully atomized by novice miners. The terrain will also slowly deform at the edges of the crater and fill it to a certain extent depending on the terrain. Example, sand compared to dirt will fill faster and more. Seems fair. The tracks created by vehicles will be permanent and will deform the terrain depending on the weight of the vehicle and the softness of the terrain. Example, the mouse may get stuck in very soft terrain. That'll be kind of funny to watch. Then hard terrain. The effect will be similar to the current breakable objects mechanic and require either a big TNT equivalent to deal damage. Example, 20mm HE won't against concrete buildings, but it can damage wooden ones, or enough penetration to pass through. The terrain will be sectioned to allow more realistic destruction and allow for better tactical use. Example, you can crumble a building on itself. Or make a lower fall in the street to block it. The terrain created by vehicles will be permanent. No, the terrain can destroy vehicles depending on the weight and distance of the object and the vehicle in question. Example, the infamous OBJ will survive a crumbling building but be smashed by a rolling boulder. Straight up rolling boulder time. That would be kind of fun. Because of these new mechanics, we'll also do certain changes to ammo types and damage types. HE ammo, shells, rockets, bombs will be the best at creating craters and crumble buildings, but the damage effect will highly depend on the TNT equivalent. E.g., the Sturm Tiger will be great at blowing things up, but awful at precise destruction. Then AP ammo, fire ammo, bunker ammo, and impact damage. So AP ammo, shells, rockets, bombs, bullets, will be the best at penetrating walls and tactically crumbling building, but the damage effect will be highly dependent on the penetration. Fire ammo, napalm, ignited oil, and fuel will have a new effect that will harden very soft terrain to allow for better maneuverability and destruction. Bunker buster ammo will have a new effect that will allow it to deal great damage to any vehicle sitting behind a penetrable structure. Also, impact damage will be implemented along with building layers or bridge layers and will allow the vehicles to damage destroy structure depending on the speed and weight of the vehicle. This is the end of the presentation. Next week, weather mechanics. It would be quite funny if they added a bunch of weird stuff like that, but I don't think they ever would. I always thought it would be kind of cool if they decided to do a game mode in a thingy game mode. What do you call it? like an April Fool's game mode where they just made the physics of stuff just all over the place, but it'd probably annihilate people's PCs. So I don't think it would work very well. That's the major issue with stuff like that. It just nukes PCs, which is why, like, even with BeamNG, you don't usually get very good frame rates, and why certain simulations take, mega PCs to render it. You can't really do that all the time. I remember when there was a suggestion for War Thunder, and it was like, make War Thunder's damage mechanics the same as BeamNG's. And yeah, it's kind of a very interesting understanding of, or misunderstanding of, how all that stuff works. You can't just like copy over from one to the other. Yeah, super funny to at least see. It's interesting how people's like minds work when it comes to that stuff and how they see it. But, never mind. It's always fun to go through some realistic stuff. I feel like if they ever made terrain fully realistic, it would just be so annoying. Like it wouldn't be fun at all. Like it would be one of those things that would be super detrimental to general gameplay. Like imagine straight up just like getting stuck everywhere or things just falling on you and you die. I remember back in the day there was even like the one where you would run into a tree, right? And if you ran into the tree, it would sometimes knock out your crew. Like if you're in like a fast, low armored vehicle, that was annoying. And yeah. Wonder if they'll add the M1A1 GDS, whose prototypes being hilarious in action. Sure, I have no idea what that is, but sure, I don't see why they wouldn't. So there's no reason why they wouldn't add anything, right? So the default idea when it comes to adding stuff should be when are they going to add it, not if. So it's more interesting to think about that. Like when they add it, what would it be cool to like see around it and all that stuff, which is why like the B-52 stuff is such a hard conversation, because there isn't really anything that fits with it. Maybe in the future there might be, but today is not that day. Who knows? Right, let's just check this. So the next one we have is Aerial Ace. They should have more single player stuff. Yeah, I think it'd be fun. I've always liked the idea of just adding expansions to the game. Just okay, well, it's time to add. How about we add, an expansion for here's 20 missions. When you complete it, you get a unique camo. You pay like, I don't know, $3 for the missions or something. It's just something you can do in an afternoon or have a bit of fun with. Maybe $5. Because they did do that interview a while back where they talked about the idea that they would obviously have issues with why are they at that? What? The guy was nowhere near there. Oh. But they would have issues with doing it because people preferred like the more multiplayer content, which I think is fair. Because, they did. But as time goes on and, more things open up, hopefully they can also open up more stuff. Yeah, he sent them ages ago, but like they were really quick. Like that was the thing. Usually they slow down by that point. That was the weird part about it. Super fast. But yeah, I would be super into more single player stuff. I generally like single player stuff in games. War Thunder is pretty much the only multiplayer game I play. Like, or if it's like PvE stuff, like Left 4 Dead or Killing Floor, like I'll play stuff like that. But generally, like PvP wise, War Thunder is the only thing that I actually play, which is weird. Like because you'd think I would be more interested in more PvP stuff, but no. I actually I actually prefer just chilling about in good old War Thunder. And other games I play are pretty much all single player, which is kind of confusing. But yeah, I would love more single player stuff. I think it would be really fun. And I have a big interest in obviously RTS stuff. I've always liked the idea of having like a big campaign map in War Thunder. Not necessarily that you play on the campaign map, but it's there as a visual aid in the hangar, and each part of it is connected to challenges. So I'll give you an example, right? This has been done in a lot of games, but also at the same time, it's something that they've done really well in a game called Forza Horizon 4. So I've been playing Forza Horizon basically because I enjoy racing games, and also at the same time, one of the key things about racing games is the idea of progression, unlocking cars, unlocking new tracks, doing stuff like that. But one of the big things about Forza Horizon 4 is it was super cheap because it's going out of license in December. So they keep doing like discounts on it to try and get people to buy it, because after December they're not going to be able to sell it. They have like this Lego Horizon area in Forza Horizon 4, right? And what that is an area where you can have a bit of fun in terms of kind of building stuff. So there's a huge set of challenges. Every challenge that you complete is attached to a set of Lego blocks. You are able to, after a certain amount of time, build a bunch of stuff with the Lego blocks. And you build parts of your house, and you also build new vehicles. So I have like a Lego Porsche, a Lego McLaren, a Lego Ferrari, and right now I'm unlocking a Lego plane. So the general idea is you have this kind of map of progression of all of these blocks, and when you get to certain stages, you are able to put together certain things, and you see them physically in the game. Now imagine you have War Thunder, right? And you have different maps, okay? So imagine that in your hangar, you have a World War II map, and it's the map of the world. Each quadrant of the map itself has access to a challenge. And that challenge is something to do with what happened in that area historically in terms of the Second World War. Okay? Now, if you complete, let's say, a country on that map, maybe you get a specific camouflage. Or maybe you get a specific physical decoration, or a physical camouflage, something like the camo net we were talking about. Or maybe you get a premium, or whatever it is. Maybe you get a title or a profile picture. But the idea is this idea that you have this map which is constantly changing the way that it looks like, because you are completing missions on it, and as you complete missions on it, it creates different, like you could actually start like this, right? Thinking about this, you start off from, let's say, Britain, and you have like a line which is like where your troops are, and then you have to unlock, or you have challenges to unlock different parts of Europe, and you unlock those different parts and it pushes your line forward. And every time you unlock a different part, it unlocks certain challenges that you have to complete. And once you complete the whole map, then you get something special out of it. And you also know that you've completed the map in the game itself, right? So it basically gives you a physical thing to work on, and also at the same time have challenges inside of, and would also tie it historically to what's going on. And then you could have a more modern day map, whether it's like the Iraq War, Gulf War, whatever. You could have the Vietnam map, and it kind of does the same thing, but maybe it's more localized to just Vietnam itself instead of the whole of Europe or the whole of America or the whole of, the whole of like North Africa. It could just be a country. And every time you unlock a different part of the country, it gives you different challenges to do with either the vehicles used in that country or the vehicles which are used somewhere else. And that, to me, would be really cool. It's a visual reminder of you progressing through the game. It isn't just vehicle-based. It is other other part based. And as we talked about before, right? One of the problems that War Thunder has is the end game stuff, right? What is the end game stuff? Is it like playing the end of a tech tree? I mean, okay, sure. But after a while, that gets pretty dull. Like, and that's why they have to constantly keep adding new stuff to it, right? Because people get bored of it, and there's this idea of constant progression. Why not have a system where you are consistently unlocking something which maybe doesn't give you like huge rewards? It doesn't have to give you like a big vehicle or anything like that. It just has to give you something which is more interesting, right? Like, why not just do something like that? And then... Sorry, I just have to write something down. Like, why can't something like that exist? Right? Didn't they try to do that with medals? I mean, kind of, but you don't... What do you get for getting a medal, right? So we got a medal in this one. Okay, so we just got the Medal of Maritime Merit, which is 200,000 damage to naval vehicles for France. Okay, so that's what I got, which is cool, right? Hey, cool medal, woo, right? What does it actually do for me? What's the big thing that I get out of it? Hey, Logic Master, nice to see you. Like, okay, so it goes here, right? And it's one of these, I think, maybe. Yeah, there you go. It's this one. But do I get anything for getting all of these medals? Like, so with that one, let's see. I got 2,000 free RP. Convertible RP. I have 219 million convertible RP. Right? And imagine if there was like a thing where like, oh, if you get like 20 medals, then you get like a special super duper profile picture. That doesn't exist, right? You should get a medal for getting all the medals, yeah. But yeah, so the idea is to stack stuff on top of each other to give people more challenges so they can focus on it, right? And right now, you know, you have some of that, but not really a lot. Then we have Grumpy Shumpy with Rolling Thunder noises, which is fair. Then you have Nicholas. They're adding airliners. There already is some airliners in the game. We have quite a lot of delivery vehicles too. They're pretty fun. Then we have Raptor. Hey Terminator, nice to see you. You'll just go unnoticed and is useless since you have lots of convertible RP that never change. Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I think imagine in the hangar, right? Imagine in the hangar, like in any of the hangars, the ground hangar or whatever, you just had like, I don't know, in this tent, you could click this tent, and then the game goes whoop. And then there's a map here, and it's just a map of the world. Right? And then what you do with this map is, you know, you have different countries which are obviously on it. You click on the country, and then it goes, what? And then it just shows you that country. And then there's just a bunch of different challenges on that country. And some of them could be do with the vehicles which are either from that country or used in that country. And then if you complete all the challenges from that country, then you get a special camo from that country. So there'd just be a bunch of different things that you could do. And then, you know, you could build stuff on top of it as well. Like, yeah. And it can also at the same time, if you want to, like, involve the single missions and the dynamic missions, the historical missions, all of those things, you know? It'd be nice to see. Well, they're pretty slow at doing that stuff, but one thing we do have is time. And time is not infinite, but you know, we're gonna be here for a long time. Then we have Raptor. I just hope they give the bomber spawn to the Votor. I don't know. The Votor's another one of those where it's like you can't really balance it because of the other stuff. I'm more sad about stuff like the A7, for example. The A7 got crucified in that change. But yeah, the Votor also had a pretty rough time with it. But also at the same time, the Votor was one of those vehicles that would survive quite a lot of the time until they added the F-105 in. Any tips to fight the T-72 with 87 USSR? Just you gotta shoot it in the gun or shoot it in the lower plate. And yeah, it's not the easiest thing to fight. It sucks. Then we have Malt Borjesen. Hi Tech. Hello. I currently have an overflow of SL, 75 million to be exact. I was wondering if Gaijin has made any announcements about the SL boxes, because I haven't seen them in a while, and I'd love to spend some of my SL. Love from Sweden. Love from Canada. No, they haven't, but I wouldn't be surprised if they bring one along in the summer, because, you know, they seem to attach them to the events that used to be, so like the winter event and the summer event. And yeah, it's a lot of people have a ton of SL right now and not really a ton to put it into stuff. But also, I was saying in the video that we did earlier on, this is the whole point of them doing, like, well, the economy changes last year were twofold. Number one was the fact that obviously people needed a bit more help when it came to SL, so therefore they made it easier to get SL. And now with the abundance of SL, you have the opposite, where people now want to throw it into loot boxes. So now this normalizes loot boxes more and makes it so people are more accustomed to loot boxes coming around, which sucks. But it's the oldest trick in the book. Like and it worked. You know, you make a change, so it's beneficial in more than one way, and people fall for it because they only think about it in one way. And yeah, it's kind of sad, but what are you gonna do? C'est la vie. It's just how it goes. Hopefully, in the future, in terms of these things, there is something else to kind of spend SL on. I would personally like some stuff which is not just loot boxes to spell it on. Like at this point, like I have 120 million SL, and it's only increasing. Like it's not going down. But I refuse to purchase loot boxes for a very simple reason. I think they're incredibly predatory. I think in general what's going to happen is it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And we're seeing what the end goal is already, which is you're going to actually get events now where they have loot boxes in them, and you will get loot boxes instead of major prizes. They're already doing it with the battle pass, and it's very sad. They're going to do it with other stuff too. Things that used to be permanent are now going to be temporary. Things that used to be definite things are now going to be loot crates, and yeah, it's going to be very sad. They're adding it into a lot of areas, and it's just going to continue, and it rubs me the wrong way, because it was one of the things that War Thunder was always very fair on in terms of how they did stuff. And unfortunately, that seems to be changing, and it makes me very sad. Hopefully, the path is shifted, but since gambling is one of the more accepted addictions right now, because it's the one that people can make money from other people on, then I don't think that's going to happen. What's the best nation? America. There was a paper that I read, which was actually very good going through this. And the paper itself, we go here. You can find it on the SSRN electronic library. But it's been removed. Well, that sucks. But basically, the paper itself was about I have it downloaded as a PDF, but the paper itself was the financial consequences of legalized sports gambling, and it was by Brett Hollenbeck, Poet Larson, and David Proserpio from July 2024. And I'm probably going to make a video around it because it's a pretty good. Yeah, you can add tug nuts if you want. It's a very good paper about it, and it basically goes through the issues of the rampant kind of aggressive push in sports gambling over like the last period of time in America. And the issue with sports gambling and also just gambling in general is it affects negatively the people who you want it to affect the least. So, for example, the people who get affected the most by gambling and also fall into bigger traps are usually people who are of lower income already. So, what gambling does is it makes the lowest lower and it makes the highest higher. So it isn't a fair system in its setup. And this is like all forms of gambling, right? It's just something that is seen throughout history. But this was a paper that went through perfectly, even over such a short period of time of a few years, of what has happened in America with the legalization of a lot of the I think it's like 38 states now have legalized sports gambling, and the data is incredibly clear, and it's just really sad. And it's just one of those things which is it's never going to change. You know, there's obviously a big stink made out of it in gaming for a little bit, and now nobody cares anymore because it's I don't even know. I don't even ever see people complaining about stuff in gaming apart from it being just some really dumb thing that doesn't matter. So yeah, it's just how it is, and it's sad to see. But yeah, it's gonna they'll bring back loot boxes. They'll start bringing back more GE boxes, and they'll start doing things like that because that's where the money is now. If I can sell you something where you get a 25% chance of getting the thing you want, or I can sell you something where you get, you know, the thing every time, you're going to pick the thing where you get it every time. But if I can make the thing where you only get it a quarter of the time, 30% or a third of the price of the permanent one, then I make money on average. And that's exactly what they're doing. So it's just how it is. Hey L3, nice to see you. It just sucks, man. It really does. It's a very, very bad path, and everybody is going down it now because I suppose screw morals. Very, very sad. So then we have this. We have Thrawn. Any word on the big name World War II battleships coming to the game? Any of the Iowas, the Bismarck, King George V, and the Yamato? Well, we have some of the large battleships from the Second World War in the game, but if you mean like the really iconic ones, not really. Like War Thunder DMM talked about gathering information about the Yamato a few years ago. Obviously, there are partnered Gaijin games where those vehicles are in already, and also War Thunder Mobile has added some much larger battleships than we already have in War Thunder. So they are going to come, is probably it. I mean, a few years ago, the Tirpitz was straight up. What's the word? The Tirpitz was leaked, right? Even just a few years ago. The key thing about those World War II battleships is pretty simple. Once you add them, what is the hook that you can keep people playing to research stuff in Naval? So if you decide to add in all of those like big battleships, what do you add in after that? Like what's the big thing that you can add in which is which would matter to players? Because what, you're gonna add in like missile destroyers or missile frigates? It's not really that interesting, right? Aircraft carriers, I mean, maybe Hobosen, but once again you got that problem with what nations have aircraft carriers, you know, like, and how many of them. Submarines could be something that you can add. So you add the battleships first, and then you add the submarines as a counter. That could work if they wanted to do something like that. Like that could be something. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's once you do it, what's like the next hook that you can keep people on. So I wouldn't be surprised if for a long time we don't see those things, because of the fact that, you know, they're just one of those things which are going to take a big chunk of time to produce, a lot of money to produce, and once you add them in, what's the next big thing for people? It's an interesting conversation. I would like to kind of see what people are more interested in modern days naval stuff, but yeah, we haven't really had a ton of conversations about that. The other part of it as well is like there's still a ton of vehicles they can add in the game that are between the ones that we have now and those vehicles. So we're probably going to see some of those first, right? There's still a bunch of World War One stuff they could add if they wanted to. Like, it's crazy. What a time to be alive. As I said, like before, Naval as a game mode has the largest opportunity for expansion out of all of the major game modes. Just a question of whether they'll actually do it or not. Be interesting to see. I hope they do. But yeah. Hopefully they can start doing some events which are a little bit more interesting for people, so people can actually enjoy them instead of not. Instead of doing the funny stuff. I just need to check. Is this actually working properly? Yeah, it is good. Good. So we have AREC, which just says traitor. Fair enough. Like, I don't know what to say about that. So we have Charlie Harris. Hi, Tech. Just want to hear your opinion on the possibility of Gaijin added different versions of the JU-188. The possible introduction of the 388 bomber version. Since I'm a fan of the 188, I think it's only really fitting to add the variants of the 188. And I would also like to see the 388, since, well, we have the Night Fighter version, the 388J. So I think it's only really fitting to add the bomber variant. And since the bomber version could actually carry the Fritz X guided bomb and other sorts of bombs. Yeah, sure. Like, there's a bunch of weird medium bombers they could add in terms of Germany for World War II. And the 188, the 288, and the 388 series have quite a lot of them. Also other JUs, which would be quite fun to see. The 187 is the one that always kind of comes to mind. That has never made it yet. I'm sure will make it in the future. But in terms of night fighters in game don't really work very well. But you know, there's obviously quite a lot added. I'd be fine with if they wanted to add more of them. Like, that would be cool. In terms of the other stuff, though, like in terms of the bomber stuff, sure. I mean, I have no issues with them adding. I have no issues with them adding more bombers to the game. I mean, generally they're pretty chill to spade out, and they can obviously be used as CAS elements and stuff like that in naval and ground. It wouldn't really be too hard to add as well, since they already have the models. It was weird when they updated the JU-88 models, but I'm guessing they probably did because they were going to add them to Enlisted, so it's probably the place where they were turning up. Pretty interesting to see. But yeah, I'll be fine with them. There's a lot of weird and kooky German things they could add, which I think people would find a lot of fun in. And those types of vehicles would be that. It would be pretty chill to play, but you know, that's not a bad thing. I just don't think they would work very well as like event vehicles or anything like that, but if they wanted to add them in as just standard tech tree vehicles, that'd be pretty fun. So we have Panzer Kitsune. When Japan ground covert leaks, there aren't any. Like, that's it. There aren't any ground covert leaks for Japan. There are some physical leaks though, so just remember the covert leak stuff is only the first part of the leak stuff, because there's been so much stuff leaked over the past. What covert leaks are the ones which haven't been shown physically, in terms of the game. So there is a bunch of other ones which have been shown, in terms of, you know, them existing and going around and stuff like that. So just understand that is also one of the sets that we're gonna be going into too. So yeah, reward coupon for exchange of free research, usable XP. I mean, yeah, stuff like that would be nice. The only issue is it cuts into the bottom line, right? But yeah. And then we have, yeah, so Japan Air Leaks came out today, and there is naval stuff too, so look, good to look out here. So then we have Gaming Today, King of the Strawman right here. Sure. Yeah, I get that's a phrase that gets bandied around a lot when people have nothing to say. It's one of the most annoying phrases in terms of online stuff, that people just say for, well, basically because they either don't understand the point or they don't understand what's kind of going around. And it's happened a lot in War Thunder, and it usually comes from the fact that there's a lot of people who don't really understand how any of these things work. There's not too much to say about it. So then we have Crane Hagen. A game that you purchase once and can unlock all the vehicles that can show you what War Thunder could be like doing. That is Hellborn. Or Heliborn, I should say. Heliborn absolutely nailed helicopter gameplay. Now the publisher shit all over the game and have basically killed it, but that's besides the point. I still love to go back to the game and play it, but that's not much. Yeah, it's missing basically a third of helicopters because they never made a European or rest of the world tree, but that would have only gotten the game so far. Fair enough, I'll check it out. Heliborn's one of those that was brought up quite a few times, when, first of all, helicopters came out, but also at the same time when all these discussions about monetization went around. But yeah, I'd have to look into it and see how it all works and everything, and then make decisions kind of from there. Usually, when I looked at Heliborn, it seemed to have a metric ton of DLCs attached to it, so it seemed kind of similar to like how DCS does things, which always worries me because I really don't like the DCS model for things. But yeah. Would you like some more South American vehicles and planes? Sure, why not? My default when it comes to that stuff is always going to be yes, so I don't see why it wouldn't be good to have stuff like that in. Yeah, I'll check out Heliborn, see how its monetization works. So we have Trevor Phil. Hi Tech, hope you're doing well. I'm not, but when do you think the F-14D and F-18 will be added to War Thunder? Another thing, why do Gaijin basically scam people for money in the game? Like, what makes the higher tier premiums like 7.0 and up more expensive? Like, do they really need to be that expensive? Cost is a value judgment. Obviously, cost is different depending on your economic status. So, usually these things are calculated based on the average a person has in order to pay for the bracket that they're looking to target. There's plenty of people who buy the high tier premiums, so it seems like they're not as expensive for those people. The other part of it as well is F-14, F-18, December 2024. So probably December, the last update of the year. And I don't think Gaijin scams anybody. I think in general it's the prices are at what they're at because people are willing to pay for them. And as a business, you don't put a price lower than it needs to be because that is just going to basically you're basically just giving away capital at that point. Like what would be the point in doing that? Like all the calculations around pricing and around this and around that, there's a lot of information that goes into that and how it all works. So there are going to be people who are happy with it. There are going to be people who aren't going to be happy with it.
But the major thing that you have to ask yourself is, if it's that bad, why do people pay for it? And usually the default answer for that, if you don't like the company, is because people are addicted to the product, which is completely fine. Like there's no real discussion after that. But the other side of it, which is a bit more interesting, is because, well, okay, so why do these guys have so much expendable income? Why don't I? Have you played any of the War Thunder predecessors? Yeah, I have. Yeah, Wings of Prey, Birds of Prey, all that stuff. Had a good time with them. Pretty fun. Like, at the end of the day, when it comes to War Thunder, when you pay for a product, you get the product, right? Like, that's... A scam would be if you pay for a product and you don't get it. Like, that is a legitimate scam. Like, when it comes to, like, let's say you pay for a mobile phone and it just doesn't appear. That would be a scam. In War Thunder, you pay for what you get. The only question is, do you agree with the value of what you paid for it? And that is where it gets a little bit different, right? That's where it gets a little bit wonky. And different people have different ideas for it. For me, I don't think the high tier or the top tier premiums are worth it. I would never buy them personally. But there are people who have less time than me and also have different goals in the game that are willing to buy them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be that price and they wouldn't be sold in that amount. The other thing to also mention about why the prices basically increase as you go up the tiers is because the vehicles are much more valuable than the vehicles themselves are much more valuable as they go up because they can research more efficiently, right? That's pretty much it. There was a really interesting case with Enlisted, actually, when Enlisted started, because these exact conversations happened. Because there would be vehicles which the people people used to always compare it to War Thunder, which was weird. Where they would be like, "Oh, in War Thunder, I can get a jumbo for like $20. Why is it $60 in Enlisted?" It's like, well, because you can research the whole campaign with just the jumbo if you want to. You can't do that in War Thunder. You can only research half the tree efficiently. That's basically why it's a different price, because its opportunity is higher in the game. But trying to explain that to people is like, you might as well just get yourself shot in the head, because people just don't get that. Microeconomics is one of those things I've been trying for many years to try and get people to understand in War Thunder, and I've failed. So I've just given up. I've given up trying to get people to understand basics about supply and demand, basics about cost, basics about value judgments, basics about even just like venture capital funding and things like that. It's just, yeah. I've given up, man. Like, there's no point. I'd rather just act dumb. It's much easier in life, or at least on the internet. Like, we can sit down and look at like spreadsheets all day and look at how much like certain things work and how much they get broken down and do all of these different things, or I could just play stupid. And for my own mental health, it's much easier just to play stupid and just do all these things in my own time. The discussion of these things I found very tough over the years. It's the most impossible part of talking about War Thunder and just any product that's free. Because when you have a free product, a percentage of people, the vast majority actually of people, will never spend any money on it. Ever. Right? So what that means is you somehow have to make up the difference with the people who spend money. And also, on top of this, you have to plan for the future. You need to make the capital now in order to invest in products that you are going to make into the future, right? So when you take into effect all of these factors, no matter what you price something at, even if you price something at 50 cents, there'll be a set of people who won't buy it and complain that it should be free, even if it's something that's insanely high value. And then, if you end up doing that, you end up pissing the other people off who have already bought similar stuff in the past at a higher price, right? So it's just one of those things which it's impossible to sort out. It's a really there's I need to sit down with somebody who's done this for a different video game, because I don't think the War Thunder guys would be okay with kind of sitting down and going through it. But I'd love to sit down with like either a CFO or an accountant or something like that of an old, like an indie game or something like that, and then basically just go through the general costs of things and also go through like, the revenue side of things too. I think it would be super, super cool to do. Maybe in the future, who knows? Hey, Atom Smash, nice to see you. I've been doing good. Life's alright. Like, I can't be mad. Workouts have been going good. The event is pretty chill. We're doing the Battle Pass stuff and doing some of the Tech Talk stuff. Overall, not too bad. Pretty easy day today. Alright, then we have Maxwell. Hello, Tech. I just watched the RP bonus video you made, and to be honest, I'm disappointed. It'll only touch a very small amount of people, and it doesn't seem like that big of a bonus. I've been playing since 2018, and I won't get any bonus because I play multiple nations, and I don't have a top vehicle. In my opinion, if someone has a top vehicle in a nation, then they probably don't really need a bonus to play other nations, because after they've spaded them all, what are they going to do? Play the same stuff? If yes, a bonus probably won't cut it. I personally wanted some short sort, I'm guessing, of free RP for every rank of a tree you complete. It may have been too unrealistic, but still. The system won't touch me for the next few years because I'm not even in rank 6 in most nations, so at least you and all the CCs can get something. Well, I mean, let's be honest, the new system is completely worthless for me. Hey Daddle, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Because for me, like, if I need to research something, I just go and research it. I don't need bonuses, right? In order to do it. This system is mainly for people who only play one tech tree, which is unfortunately a lot of people, and to try and get them to play more than one tech tree. So, because Gaijin's thoughts for the longest time, they even talked about this in a few Q&As, was the idea of is if you finish a tech tree, you've kind of like technically finished the game, and they see that as kind of like a completed game. So the idea is for this system to come in to try and promote those types of people who only play one tech tree to try and play other ones. Now for me, I already play everything. So of course it's going to affect me in a positive way because it will give me more research towards, grinding whatever I am because I have those vehicles. But at the same time, it's not something which is really going to affect me in a heavy, massive way. It's for people who get stuck playing the same tech tree over and over again and don't see a point in playing a different tech tree, which unfortunately is a lot of people. And what they do is they get burnt out on playing the same stuff over and over again, and then they refuse to move over to another one because they're like, well, why should I? Because it'll take me ages to get to top tier. Well, here is your opportunity to make it easier to get to top tier. That's basically the whole point of this, right? That's the whole point of this change. It's been needed for a long time in some way, and this is the way that they're adding it in, right? So that's basically what it is, right? What do I think will be coming in the next update? I don't know actually. I haven't really put any thought into it because we have obviously the kind of like the August stuff, like the roadmap stuff, which is kind of sat there now. So that's gotta get going too. The new system is trying to get people who only play one tech tree to get other tech trees. The problem, from the perspective of someone who only has played one tech tree, I don't like prop combat. Yeah, I mean, well, there's no way of getting around that, right? But yeah, that's the idea of it, right? It doesn't really help CCs because CCs can just request anything they want. So, like at the end of the day, it doesn't really affect most CCs or any CCs. What this does is it gives people an opportunity who may be afraid of starting a new nation because they don't want to sit there like grinding for years and years and years again, years and years and years, to be able to get to high tier again. Like that's the point. And we'll see if it works. Hopefully it has a positive impact. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't, gonna be kind of sad. So So we'll have to see what goes on. The major issue with it is going to be the amount, like the percentage change. If the percentage changes what the thing was before, it's not really going to make too much of a difference. Still doesn't, you know, I still think a more vehicle-based one would make more sense instead of a nation-based one. Like as I've said in a few videos, the idea, if you've spaded a specific vehicle like a 2A4, for example, or maybe like a specific variant of the Yak or something like that, then you get a bonus towards researching the exact same vehicle in a separate tech tree, or a very, very close vehicle in a separate tech tree. It's the only way to go forward with it, right? And we have Christian Medved. I want the F-117. I want heroin. So we have T-95 man, B-50, B-47, YB, blah, 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 and more. Yeah, all American, weirdly enough, isn't it? Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Wow, it's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Absolutely nuts. Wow. That's what they should do, actually, and they should just remove all the other tech trees and just make it America. It's the only way forward, I think. I don't think there's a way around it here. Just do that. Right, there's the Guichin done. It's kind of crazy how quick you can do a lot of these vehicles. So crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So we have Phantom Aviator. Hi guys, I'm swinging the P-51H because I got the new camo. Nice. Yeah, that's pretty cool. The new camo is pretty nice for that, actually. Like, I'm down for that. Right, what do I need to spade next? We could do the Hipper. Yeah, but I want to do the Hagura. Should do the Hagura. Let's go 5-7 then. But yeah, what do you call it? The P-51H is really fun. Like I had a really good time with it. Can't sing its praises enough. It was super fun to play. Nice naval tech tree you have. I'm pretty happy with where I am in most of the tech trees right now. Been pretty good. Oh, god damn. But yeah, maybe you could do like a rank research bonus thing. Like if you've, let's say, if you've researched everything and spaded everything in like rank 3 America, maybe you could get like a percentage bonus to like other rank 3 vehicles and other tech trees. There's a lot of opportunities like that. Like put it like this, right? So when I look at this change, okay? So when I look at the change that they've made in terms of the game, for this kind of like type of RP thing that they're adding in. Hey, man's not spud. Nice to see you. So the way that they've added it is kind of interesting, and the basic thing that I've got to say about it is they've obviously had to fundamentally change something in the way that research works in order to add it in, right? So, for example, when they added it in and implemented some of the code to make it work, when they were started to test it, when this update came out, they somehow completely broke squadron vehicles. Like they just didn't work, which seems kind of weird, right? Because, you know, they should work, but they just didn't. So if that's something that's happening in terms of like the game, it must mean that they're fiddling around with how different parts of research work and how, you know, you're able to have a go with it and how it's all set up. So if that's the case, which I'm hoping it is, I mean, it might not be, like it might not be the case. It would be really cool to see. Where is that? There you go. There. It would be really cool to see if they decided to add more things research-wise in the future. And you've also got to remember that right now we're only on the second. We're only halfway through the year in terms of the roadmap stuff and also in terms of all the other stuff. So I'm guessing they're going to add a bunch more stuff in, and what they're going to do going forward, which would be nice to see. Which is kind of funny that it lines up with all of the. It lines up with all of the things that people are doing, like the kind of little boycott thing that's going on, because basically it means now that since all that stuff kind of lines up and is going to work together, they can have like a real easy humdinger and like a real easy home run. And basically be like, hey, we've heard you. Here's all the roadmap stuff we're working on, right? Which is quite interesting. Kind of weird how all that works. Yeah, I think in general, like looking at where we're at in terms of stuff like that, it's really weird. Really kind of weird to think about. Oh, why, please? Right, so then we have the next one, which is Bellinor. Know why the Swedish jets play like that? Because Gagarin is Russian and Sweden joined NATO and NATO vehicles can't be good. Yeah. None of the American tech tree is any good. None of the British tech tree is any good. None of the French tech tree is good. They're all terrible. Yeah. I think there might be a little problem with bias in your brain when it comes to that. Might be wrong, you know, maybe it's me who's the crazy one, but yeah, to say a statement like that is there's no other way of saying it apart from it's just wrong, isn't it? Like like there are many good NATO vehicles in the game. There are many vehicles which are in fact very much kind of game breaking, which are NATO vehicles. So I don't think in terms of NATO and the game, I feel like NATO is not exactly in a negative place. So yeah, it's just how it is. And we have Dr. Rathon. F-16A, AJ, ADF do not belong at 13.0. Okay. Sure. I don't know what BR they should be at. I have no idea. Hopefully they find the correct BR for themselves. Oh, I cocked this up royally. Hope it goes in the engine. That destroyed all of my outer turrets. That's kind of weird. But yeah. Sure. Yeah. Just put them up or put them down or whatever. I have another reason to boycott. The Events Tornado AS-34 Comran ship missile does not work at all. Is it that the missile doesn't work or the radar doesn't work? Because aren't they like intertwined? Like, wasn't that the major issue with them? Yeah, I don't know. I haven't actually ever used them, so I don't know if they work or not. They probably don't though, thinking about it. Probably pretty rough. So then we have the unintended qual CAC. I think that's what that says. Sorry if I cocked that up. Only hype. Look what happened to the F-111. After 3 months, Gagarin broke it with a nerf. No, they fixed it. Like right. As a person who ground out the F-111, right, when it first added into the game, that thing hardly lost energy while it turned. And it's huge. It's a massive vehicle. Like, it should lose energy when it turns, you know? If anything, what they should stop doing is they should stop adding these damn vehicles into the game half cooked. So then we don't have these unrealistic ideas of it. One of the big issues with jets, if you have a look at a lot of the vehicles that have got heavily nerfed recently, right? So first of all, you have all of the swept wing aircraft, like the variable swept wing ones. All of them have been nerfed because they were massively overperforming, like to an insane degree. And then also the Doritos, right? So it's more the fact that when they bring these vehicles in, there should be a bit more care in terms of them being added into the game. And then people don't get unrealistic representations of what they should be and should then be added in a more positive way, which makes actual sense, right? That is what is more important, in my opinion, than what we have now, which is where they get added, but they get added in a way which is unrealistic, and then people really like them because, hey presto, it's really nice just like abusing people in busted vehicles. And then when they get changed to be more realistic, people complain because they're like, why did you nerf my vehicle? But they didn't actually. They actually made it what it should have been in the first place, but for some reason it wasn't that in the first place. So maybe more care just needs to be put forward to make it like it should be in the first place. Like maybe that's the thing, right? Maybe that's what they should focus on. Instead of having this scenario where people will basically just get annoyed. Like and once again, who can blame them? Like I don't blame them. It's annoying as all hell. You know, you play a vehicle, you have a ton of fun with it, it's really enjoyable, and then they just make it completely worthless. You know? Then we have the next one, which is Pardy. Bombers are useless. Not really. Certain bombers are useless. But once again, it's just it's a numbers game, right? Since certain bombers are useful, other bombers cannot be useful because they have varying different setups. And everything you can think of in terms of, you know, what they could add and what could be there, unfortunately they all have counters to them and it sucks. It's a question I've been trying to like put and work out in my head for many years, how to make it so each of the types of vehicles in the game work together in harmony, but also at the same time have their own purpose. And it's very tough, incredibly tough to do. And the only way you can really do it is through making more different, like, technical specifications of vehicles and then adding different bonuses for them to do different things. But even then, like, people really don't like it when you do that because then, you know, it's the whole thing is like, you know, limiting the amount that you can get out of it. So that's tough. It really is. It's a tough time. Maybe what we do is we just create a bunch of missions which are straight up just single player missions where you cosplay as a Lancaster pilot from World War II, or you cosplay as a B-17 pilot, or you cosplay as a B-52 pilot. That's one thing that would actually be kind of fun if they ever did it. Once again, just call them like realistic missions, okay? So like, and it's like a set of, I don't know, 5 missions. And what it does is it gives you a completely simulated experience of what it would be to play these things in real life, right? So maybe you could get like 10 missions, 10 B-17 missions, right? And they all take place in War Thunder on maps, and you have to go across like the whole map over and over and over again with different terrain. Like a lot of it obviously would be like sea and stuff like that, but yeah, you do stuff like that, and then you get intercepted by bombers, then you have to get the bombs on the target, then you have to go home, you know, you have to like manage your fuel, maybe you get hit and you have to do stuff. Like it would be fun to do something like that, just to have it there, right? Just to have it there. And surely it cannot take too long to be able to set something like that up. And the interest part of it, I mean, the interest part of it is, you know, people actually enjoying it because it's the historical setup. It's something to do as like a one-off and get yourself like a camo or get yourself something else out of it. And for me, I think that would be really enjoyable. But once again, that's me, right? I don't mind spending an afternoon just playing, you know, a map of something, building a city, or I don't mind like setting up like a strategic map and playing like a game of Risk for a day or 2 days or 3 days with people. So I understand that my brain might be slightly different to other people, but it's some of that I would like to see. Right, and then we have Grumpy Shumpy with Rolling Thunder noises, which was put again. Put it in a few separate times. Where the hell is that Shimakaze? But yeah, so that's the end of the tech talk. Do any of you guys have any questions or thoughts on things before we go through? Before we have a bit of fun and just relax? Is there anything that you guys are interested in? Obviously, the Twitch drops are going on this weekend, so that might be something to have a look at to see what's happening. But yeah, so the week ahead should be fun. We'll probably get some more news about them testing different things and trying different stuff and going through different things. Hopefully we have a decent amount of things going on. Is the World War game mode still existing or active? Right, so they do it in seasons, right? And right now the season is off. So it'll be going again just at some point. There was actually some World War mode stuff in the what do you call it? In the what's the word I'm looking for? In the roadmap. So they're probably going to bring it back pretty soon, or at least try and do stuff which is slightly different, which should be quite nice. Thoughts on the state of the vehicle combat game market as a whole? Well, it hasn't changed in a very long time when you think about it, right? So it's like an event? Yeah. Yeah, okay. So if you've never done World War mode before, first of all, Addy, I've done a bunch of like videos, like kind of showing what World War mode is like. So including like commanding one. So if you want to check that out on the channel, you can do. But basically it's seasons. So you have like a week or 2 weeks where what ends up happening is you have like a huge like map, and then you create operations on the map, and then people fight in them, and then you can win or lose, right? That's basically how it goes. But in terms of the game, in terms of the mode, it happens in seasons. So you've had like season 1, season 2, season 3, and then you've had some like singular things which have been like testing stuff. So the basic thing about it is you have like a season of it with a bunch of operations, and then you play through that. It usually takes place over like a week or a month, which goes around, over that, which is quite good. But yeah, the thoughts on vehicle combat stuff. I mean, it's been super stagnant for a long time, right? Like when you think about vehicle games, you have like the more arcadey ones, which there's like a million of, and then you have the more kind of realistic ones where there's very few of, and then simulated ones you have even fewer. But if you actually have a look at like the general grand scheme of things, like in terms of like the gameplay and what they kind of represent and stuff like that, it's all the same. Like it's it's literally all the same, right? The general way of approaching them hasn't changed. And even when you get like newer games, which aren't even newer, they're like 5 years old now, like stuff like Gonna Heat PC, right? Which is supposed to create this like simulated tank experience. You can go back like 20 years and you can find exactly the same thing. So there's definite stagnation with it. There are little ideas and things which are trying to change that. So Age of Water, for example, is Age of Water is one of those things which is trying to switch up how all of it works, in terms of like, grinding up parts, building your own ships and doing stuff like that. But it seems like people aren't really interested in that one for some reason. I thought it was a really good game. We're going to play some in the future, which will be nice, but yeah, it looks like, at least to me, it's not something that's very much on the calendar for a lot of people, and that's sad. But it would be nice to see some more innovation. I have no idea where it comes from, because at least the big players right now in the market aren't really doing anything different. It's more, there isn't a lot of innovation going on. It's more about just maximizing monetization, which is fine, but at the same time, it's, kind of dull. Like, not very enjoyable. Right, so then Are you gonna grind to make the coupon for the ship tradable or not? I am, yeah, but I'm not gonna trade the ship. I'm gonna trade it in for war bonds. I don't like using the market as a content creator. I feel like it's kind of silly and unethical to do because we can just request stuff. So what I could technically do is I could sell the vehicle and then request it afterwards, right? And yeah, that just wouldn't really be fair. It's basically a way of just, you know, kind of screwing the system. And you know, I'm not hugely into screwing systems. I'd rather have it so I'd rather have it so things are done a bit more fairly. So I grind it out if it's close to, and then I just end up what's the word? I just end up trading it in for war bonds. The thunder screech? The thunder screech would not be very fun in the game. It'd be funny for approximately one match. And then it would become very unfunny. You know? Yeah. But usually I don't really grind the coupon, because I don't really feel the need to, because I'm gonna keep the vehicle anyway. But if the opportunity is there, then I'll go for it. This event, this naval event is super easy. Like, it's insanely easy when you actually think about it. Like, I have not been putting a lot of effort into it. I've been even playing like other games at the same time, and I'm already on track on the 4th day, like getting the bonuses to everything, or getting the coupons. So yeah, it's kind of nuts. Let's see. I'd love to see a AAA studio make a jab at the market. It would be fascinating to see what a Ubisoft Ace combat style game would do to the market. Well, I mean, Ubisoft has been on the downtrend for many years now, so I don't know if they would be any good at doing it. But yeah, I mean, competition's always good, right? Like, that's the main thing. Competition is always something that should be looked for, especially as a consumer. Competition means that even if you have, you know, a specific product that you enjoy, it's going to improve as long as, you know, other people are also pushing towards it. The major issue with somebody like the AAA companies, if you look at a lot of the things that Gaijin has been doing, and also Wargaming mainly, but also Gaijin, right? If you actually have a look at it, they are copying a lot of the things that the AAA companies are doing, or the AAA companies are copying what they're doing. So the idea that there's going to be a difference, or the monetization is going to be better, or, you know, graphically stuff is going to be getting better, it really isn't. Like, if you have a think about it, right? War Thunder in itself is nuts in terms of how it's set up. Like, Gaijin literally use their own engine. They have built everything from the ground up. They build everything themselves. And they control pretty much everything, right? So any company that is kind of getting into the space, or trying to get into this space, they're already behind by 11, 12, 15 years. Which is why nobody does it. Because you can't. Like, you have to basically go back in time, and that's not easy for obvious reasons. You know, nobody's figured out how to go back in time yet, so. Oh my god. Maybe if somebody figures out how to go back in time, then we can sort it out. How can this guy shoot? Oh yeah, it's arcade, isn't it? Competition does create innovation, and right now we do have a bit of a problem in gaming where there's a lot of areas which there isn't a lot of innovation, which kind of sucks. Oh yeah, I saw this one, yeah, and I honestly feel like it's just a bunch of rubbish. I don't believe it at all. But then again, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie got made, but that at least makes a bit more sense because you can just make a generic horror. But yeah, Skibbity toilet film and TV franchise in the works from Michael Bay. Adam Goodman listened to the exclusive interview. What would be kind of interesting about the whole Skibbity toilet thing is actually more who actually owns all of the copyright for this, right? So is it the guy who's made the videos? Is it Valve themselves? Is it going to be so different from the previous product that it's going to be so far off, like compared to everything else going on? I don't know. Hey, Super Texter, nice to see you. So yeah, I don't know. That part is very weird to think about. But yeah, put it like this: Hollywood has always kind of like taken things from the internet and just made stuff out of them. And like, I don't know if you've seen memes over the last 10 years, but they don't make a lot of sense. And memes eventually will have an impact on culture. So what you're going to see nowadays is you're going to have a ton of really awkward, weird films, similar to stuff like Fried Barry, which are going to be designed to try and get people interested in them of a younger age. And they're all going to be crap. Because they always are. The fact that Inside Out 2, which I watched in the cinema actually, is the highest grossing animated movie, even though it's a very, very basic movie with really not too much to it, and also just completely screws up how emotions actually work, by the way. But you have all of that, right? And because of that being the way it is, it became the highest grossing animated movie ever. At least from, was it Pixar or Disney? That should make you very worried, but c'est la vie. It's the world that we live in. So. It is the world that we live in, and it makes no sense at all. Fallout was pretty good. It's also easy to watch because of our Amazon Prime overlords. That's true, but it's also very hard to screw up Fallout. Like Fallout is such like an expanded universe, and it's one of those things that it's basically a Hollywood movie in itself. Oh, it's a wasteland after a nuclear war, and there's corporations that are trying to get control of it, right? Like it's a very hard thing to screw up. In terms of like the story, you know. If it's a story that has been done like a million times, so basically like a 3-pronged attack and who owns what. Like literally The Hobbit. Like going, and even like before then, it's the same ideas. But yeah, it's interesting to think about. Interesting to look at too. But for me, it's one of those things that I think we'll see more of. And for every Fallout, there's about 20 other video game stuff that is absolutely horrific. So, remember the Assassin's Creed movie? Did anybody watch that? Or the Halo TV show, which got cancelled? Thank God. Yeah. Let's see. Which nation would you say has better top tier MBTs, China or Japan? Trying to figure out something new to grind? I mean, technically, China, but it really is more of a playstyle thing in terms of what you're interested in. You're waiting for War Thunder the movie? There literally was a War Thunder. There was a movie made in War Thunder. Actually, there's been a few, weirdly enough. Yeah, I would honestly say China. Japan, like, they have obviously the Type 90s and the 10s, which are really fun. And they have, like, the Type 83 now or something like that? Can't remember its name. But all those things are vehicles, which all of those vehicles basically play the same. And there's no real difference between them. China at least has some variants and also, once again, has the most ability to evolve. The first Mortal Kombat movie was okay. Wasn't that from the 90s, Jerry? Like that was a while ago, right? Pretty sure it was from like the 90s. But yeah, as I said, there are some decent like movies or TV shows based on games. I thought that Dungeons and Dragons movie was pretty good actually. Like the one that they did, was it last year? But also at the same time, just think about all the bad ones, right? Like, it's very up and down, which is kind of sad. But you never know. Like they may make some more which are fun. The Fallout series was good though. It was well made and it was enjoyable to watch. I hope in the future they do more seasons, and I hope that people still enjoy it. Because at least for me, I personally had a good time with it. I think it was enjoyable. Both these guys missed. That was kind of funny. Do 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 do. But the real question is, what do we think Ja Rule thinks about it? Is he into? Is he into all of the video game movies? Who knows? Hey, Kiss Jack, nice to see you. I think we'll wrap up the tech talk here. We'll continue streaming. Obviously, we've got a bunch of naval stuff to do and to have a bit of fun with. And yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed the tech talk. We'll be back next week. If you have any thoughts in terms of what you want to put. Oh, first of all, before we go, let's see. What say you, Bobo? When you request a vehicle, how does it work? Do they just hand you it, or no questions asked, or how does it work? So we have an email address that we basically put in the request to, right? So, hi, I would like this, right? And then basically they can send back, hey, it's added to your account, or no. Unfortunately, we can't do that. That's pretty much how it is. It's a very basic system, but it also doesn't need to be any more complicated than it is. Everything is just done through an email address. And there's somebody on the other side which is doing the other way. I started watching the esports thing when the drop started, streaming nearly 3 hours ago, and still haven't gotten the 30-minute award. That sucks. I've been able to get a few of them. I don't think I have all of them yet. Let's see. This one can either be easy or hard, depending on what goes on. But anyway, do we think top tier boats will get SAMs or the CWIS? Some of them already have, so yeah, why not? All right, look after yourselves. Peace be with you. See you next time.